Severe weather warnings across Queensland, heavy rain, strong winds, flash flooding in multiple catchments, a developing tropical low in the Coral Sea that needs watching. That is the situation right now. I've examined the latest from the Bureau of Meteorology, cross-referenced the Access and European models, and I'm seeing a pattern that demands your attention. Not panic, attention. There is a significant difference. Right now across Queensland, conditions are vastly different depending on where you are. Brisbane and the Gold Coast have been dealing with overcast skies but not much rain. Meanwhile, up in Gladstone, they've ecopped 185 millimetres in the past 4 days. The Calliope River peaked at moderate flooding levels but has since dropped back. South of Gympie saw 25 millimetres today with temperatures sitting around 25 degrees. Comfortable compared to what has been happening further north. Mount Carbine in far north Queensland has been getting hammered with heat and humidity. 34 degrees at 11 a.m. with 80% humidity and an overnight minimum that didn't drop below 27. That is intense. When you add swarms of biting black flies to the mix, it's been genuinely unpleasant up there. The humidity has been next level, making it hard to breathe. That S not exaggeration, that S the reality of tropical moisture being pulled into the region. Compare that to Townsville, which has been overcast but relatively calm. Bowen saw a few light showers, good for the gardens and fruit trees, but nothing significant. The contrast across the state tells you everything about the complexity of this weather pattern. Out in Barcaldine, they finally got 50 millimetres overnight. After months of watching the rest of Queensland get soaked, that is welcome relief. But it highlights the patchy nature of these systems. Some areas drown while others stay bone dry, even when they re only a few hundred kilometres apart. Here's what's driving all of this. We've got a surface trough extending across central and northern Queensland, interacting with a monsoonal flow from the north. That's pulling tropical moisture down from the Coral Sea and the Gulf of Carpentaria. When that moisture hits the ranges, you get orographic lift, which means heavy rain in concentrated areas. That S why Gladstone has been flooded while Brisbane stays relatively dry despite being only a few hundred kilometres south. The Access model and the European model are in reasonable agreement on the broad pattern, but they re-diverging on the specifics. The Access model shows the trough lingering over central Queensland for another 48 hours before gradually weakening and shifting east. The European model is faster, moving the system offshore by late Wednesday. That difference matters for rainfall totals. Both models agree on one critical point. There's a developing tropical low in the Coral Sea. Right now, it's just an area of low pressure, nothing organised. But the sea surface temperatures are sitting at 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. That is more than warm enough to support tropical development. The wind shear is currently moderate, which is limiting organisation. But if that shear relaxes over the next few days, this thing could intensify. I am not forecasting a cyclone, not yet. But the ingredients are there and we need to watch it closely. The Bureau of Meteorology has it on their monitoring list and they'll issue tropical cyclone formation advisories if the organisation increases. For now, it is a low, but low doesn't mean harmless. Let us break this down by region because the impacts vary significantly across Queensland and northern New South Wales. Starting in far north Queensland from Cairns north through to Cape York, you're dealing with continued heat and humidity through Wednesday. Daytime maximums in the low to mid-30s, overnight minimums in the mid-20s. Scattered showers and thunderstorms, some possibly severe. The main risk is flash flooding in areas that cop repeated storms. The ground is already saturated in many locations. It doesn't take much additional rain to cause problems. Townsville and the surrounding areas can expect similar conditions. Overcast skies, scattered showers, muggy nights, not the most comfortable weather, but manageable. The key is the thunderstorm potential. When storms do develop in this environment, they can produce intense rainfall rates. 50 to 100 millimetres in an hour is possible under the right conditions. That S when you get localised flooding, even in areas with good drainage. Central Queensland, particularly around Mackay, Gladstone and Rockhampton. You've already had significant rain. The Calliope River flooded, though it's now receding. The ground is saturated. River levels are elevated. You don't want more heavy rain on top of what you've already received. Unfortunately, that S possible through Wednesday and into Thursday. The models show another band of heavy rain moving through, potentially dropping another 50 to 100 millimetres in some areas. That could send rivers back up. If you are in Mackay, Gladstone or Rockhampton, pay close attention to the Bureau S flood warnings. They're re-updated regularly. The situation can change quickly. What is a flood watch can become a flood warning within hours if storms develop over catchments. Southeast Queensland, from Brisbane down to the Gold Coast. You've been lucky so far. Overcast skies, a few showers, but nothing significant. That pattern continues through Wednesday. The bulk of the rain stays to your north. But by Thursday, there is potential for a southward shift. The models aren't confident on this, which tells you their S uncertainty. It could stay dry, it could turn wet. Check the forecast daily. For those on the Sunshine Coast and around Noosa, you've seen steady rain today. That continues tomorrow. Not flooding rain, but persistent drizzle and light showers. Enough to make outdoor work unpleasant, not enough to cause major issues down into northern New South Wales around the Newcastle area. You've been asking about thunderstorm potential. Wednesday and Thursday both show a risk. Not guaranteed, but possible. The air mass is unstable, there is moisture available, and if a trough pushes through at the right time, you could see severe storms, the type that produce damaging winds, large hail, and heavy rain. The BOM had forecast severe thunderstorms for some areas, then backed off. That's not them getting it wrong. That is the atmosphere being unpredictable. Forecasting individual thunderstorms more than 24 hours out is difficult. The conditions might be right, but whether a storm actually fires depends on small-scale triggers that models can resolve. So yes, there is a risk, but it's not a certainty. Now let us talk about that Coral Sea low. This is the wild card in the forecast. Current position, roughly 500 kilometres east of Mackay. Movement, slow drift to the southwest. Intensity, weak surface low, no organised convection. Sea surface temperatures, 28 to 29 degrees. Wind shear, moderate. If this low stays where it is and doesn't strengthen, it's not a major concern. Just another area of disturbed weather in the tropics. But if the wind shear drops and the low begins to organise, we could be looking at tropical cyclone formation within 72 to 96 hours. The models are split. The Access model keeps it weak and offshore. The European model shows some intensification but keeps it east of the coast. The GFS model, which tends to be more aggressive with tropical systems, shows potential for a stronger system tracking closer to the coast by this weekend. I am not sounding the alarm, but if you in coastal Queensland from Mackay north, this is something to monitor. The Bureau will provide regular updates. If formation becomes likely, they'll issue advisories well in advance. We in cyclone season. This is the time of year when these systems develop. Being prepared is just sensible. What does that preparation look like? If you haven't already, now is a good time to check your cyclone kit. Batteries, torch, portable radio, tinned food, water. If the power goes out and stays out for days, you want to be self-sufficient. Fill the bathtub with clean water before a system hits. Gives you drinking water and flushing water if the supply gets cut. Simple preparation that makes a big difference. Secure loose items around the property, outdoor furniture, trampolines, tools. In strong winds, these become projectiles. Trim overhanging branches if you can do so safely. Check your gutters and downpipes are clear. Heavy rain on clogged gutters means water goes where it shouldn't. For those in far North Queensland who might not deal with severe weather often, don't underestimate these systems. Tropical lows can produce wind gusts of 80 to 100 kilometres per hour, even without cyclone intensity. That is enough to bring down trees and power lines. Crocodile safety. With all this flooding in northern rivers, crocodiles are moving. They'll be in areas where you don't normally see them. Floodwaters push them into unusual locations. Stay away from floodwaters. Don't assume an area is croc-free just because it normally is. Looking further ahead beyond this weekend, the models diverge. The GFS suggests the low will weaken and move away from the coast by Sunday. The Access model keeps it lingering near the coast longer. The European model splits the difference. What that means in practical terms, this event could extend into early next week for some areas. Don't assume it's a 3-day event and done. Monitor the updates daily. For southeast Queensland specifically, there is a possibility of a separate coastal trough development early next week. Too early for detail, but at S on the radar. You might get your rainfall after all, just from a different system. The fire situation down south adds context here. While Queensland deals with flooding and tropical moisture, Victoria S dealing with bushfires. South Australia, Tasmania, different weather entirely. That S Australia. Fires and flooding rains all at once. Uncertainty aspects. I want to be straight with you about what we know and what we don't. The development of this Coral Sea low is not guaranteed. It could fizzle out. It could intensify more than expected. The track could shift 50 kilometres either direction and completely change local impacts. The Bureau S forecast will be updated multiple times daily. What I'm telling you now is based on the 6 p.m. analysis. By tomorrow morning, details could have changed. That is not incompetence, that's the nature of tropical systems in their development phase. Confidence is moderate for widespread rainfall across coastal Queensland Thursday through Saturday. Confidence is lower for specific totals at specific locations Confidence is low for whether this becomes a named cyclone or remains a tropical low. What that means for you, prepare for the likely scenario but stay flexible. Don T. Lock in plans that assume perfect knowledge of what this system will do. Practical timeline. Today, Tuesday evening, scattered storms across central and northern Queensland. Wednesday, activity continues, possibly intensifying late. Wednesday night, watch for the low to start organising. Thursday, widespread rainfall develops along the coast. Friday and Saturday, peak period for heavy falls and potential severe weather. Sunday, system begins to move away or weaken depending on which model is correct. For those in Newcastle asking about thunderstorm risks, you re-well south of this system. You might see some instability Wednesday and Thursday from a separate trough, but that S not related to the Queensland situation. Check local forecasts for your area specifically. The pattern overall is classic wet season for Northern Australia. The monsoon trough is active. Sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are warm enough to support tropical development. In January, this is when these systems occur. Some years are more active than others. This year, we've seen a moderate level of tropical activity so far. Not exceptionally quiet, not exceptionally active. This Coral Sea low is typical of the season. Final points. This is a significant weather event for parts of Queensland. It's not the end of the world. It's not something to ignore. It deserves your attention and appropriate preparation. For those in affected areas, the next 72 hours are critical for monitoring and preparation. After that, it's about response, dealing with whatever rainfall totals you actually receive. For those not in the direct impact zone, you can still help. Check on family and mates in Queensland. If they're in remote areas, they might feel isolated. A phone call makes a difference. The Bureau of Meteorology will continue issuing updates. I'll be monitoring the situation and providing updates as warranted. If this system intensifies or the track shifts significantly, that S, when detailed hour-by-hour coverage becomes necessary. Stay informed, stay prepared. Don T. Panic, you have dealt with wet season weather before. This is more of the same, just worth paying closer attention to.